Welcome to RISEUP Voices from the Frontlines, your window into relationships, identity, safety, emotional awareness, regulation and intelligence, unleashed potential, passion and purpose.
Hello everyone. Today's episode is very personal and it's very close to my heart. And I just wanted to give you guys a reading of a drop in the ocean. I was just a drop, sun warmed, skin kissed by light that felt safe until it didn't. The same warmth turned sinister, too bright, too close, burning instead of blessing. I was the little girl with ringlet curls and ruffled petticoats, whispering, "I love you," to a dying starfish, a helpless pink thing curling in the heat. Whispering, always whispering, because good girls are seen, not heard. Whispers don't get you hit. Whispers don't wake the beast. They said I had a good imagination. They didn't know I was surviving. My world was roller skates and Care Bears by day, and tears down the drain at night, disappearing into bathwater like they never happened. No one noticed the silence was screaming. No one asked why I flinched when the wind shifted, why my body knew the smells of stale whiskey and old cigarettes before I could even spell my own last name. I was a missing person no one ever looked for, not gone, just never fully here. A ghost child, half shadow, hands folded just right, smile set to safe. And what will become of a girl like that? A girl who learns to disappear before she even learns to read. They called me sensitive. They called me smart. But they didn't know what they were praising was hypervigilance in pigtails. Time went missing. Chunks of life blurred into sensations. Gaps where memories should have been, but always the scream lodged behind the smile. I thought I was just a drop, insignificant, replaceable, forgettable. But then the ocean whispered back, "You are not small. You are not lost. You are water and memory and force and fury. You are the tide that carves canyons. You are what the shoreline remembers." Now I am the one on the beach. I still whisper I love you to the ones left out in the heat, to the ones curling into themselves, waiting, to the ones still hoping someone will choose them. And I am the starfish, once burning, now reborn. And I am the ocean, no longer just a drop. And what if that's the truth for all of us? What if every drop matters? What if the bathwater carried sacred salt and story? What if our tears were maps? Let them call me too much. Let them say I remember too vividly. Let them say I see too much. I say let them drown in their denial. I'll be over here, becoming waves. Because I was never just a drop. I was a tide in training. And now I rise. I remember thinking even if I screamed loud enough to tear my own throat open, the world wouldn't flinch. I'm inconsequential. I was just a drop in an ocean already swollen with stories like mine, too common to be shocking, too uncomfortable to be understood. A nameless echo, one more invisible girl bleeding out, quietly, in the margins of a report on someone else's desk. A tiny starfish left out on the sand, withered, unwanted, untouched, waiting for the tide to rise and wash me into oblivion. The world never wanted me in it in the first place. I was born the throwaway daughter of a victim of human trafficking. There's no Hallmark card for that, no hashtag, no public outcry, just systems made of empty smiles and shadows, polite check marks on manila folders no one wants to look at too closely. Always someone else's problem. My mother was a child when she was taken, passed around, owned, recycled through the bodies and hands of others like some disposable object. She never got to grow up, really. She only aged. And from that wreckage, I came into the world, an echo of her suffering, a physical memory of violence marked with a scarlet letter staining my soul for all the world to see. I was sick, frail, my body couldn't regulate temperature, my weight plummeting. I was the kind of infant social workers flag as failure to thrive. But really, it wasn't me who was failing. I was responding to stress, to danger, to trauma encoded into my DNA before I even took my first breath. Worthless, ugly, unwanted, just another commodity to be sold to the highest bidder. But fate wouldn't have it. When I was taken to the hospital, they called CPS. I was removed. That's the word they use, removed, as if I were a tumor or a stain on the case file. My mother never got me back. I don't know if she ever even tried. She died at only 34 from cervical cancer caused by an STD. No one rescued her. That's how my story began, not with lullabies or love, but with loss I couldn't even name, with abandonment and rejection. And they said I was lucky. Lucky to be adopted, lucky to have a second chance, lucky to be given a family, a house, a backyard, and birthday cake. And in so many ways, that was true. But luck doesn't feel like fear. It doesn't smell like whiskey on his breath and stale cigarettes. It doesn't taste like vomit in the back of your throat as you lie still. Praying the hall light doesn't creep under the door. That sliver of light. I was never afraid of the dark, but that light. And worse, the moment it disappears just before the doorknob turns. Just before your name becomes silence. Just before you stop being a child and start wishing yourself out of existence. I had parents who loved me. I had Cabbage Patch dolls, Care Bears, Tonka trucks, roller skates, and fruit snacks in plastic bags. And sleepy Saturday mornings with cartoons. I had Christmas lights and school photo days and hugs that were filled with very real love, but that wasn't the whole story. Because sometimes, more often than I care to remember or admit, when I had to go to their house, things were different. That's still one of the hardest things for people to understand, the whiplash of duality, how sometimes it's this very predictable, unpredictable pattern of safety and pain that creates the hardest wounds to heal. The disorganized attachment pattern that's imprinted on every relationship you will ever experience. That's what no one talks about. That polarity, the unbearable contradiction, the fact that you can be deeply loved and still be deeply violated. That both can live in the same childhood and the good doesn't erase the harm. I learned early that rescue is not the same as safety. And sometimes the wolf is also the shepherd. And evil wears a Sunday suit and a uniform, and the monsters in the fairy tales might be the only friends you have when the real darkness comes. Becoming the ocean. I became an expert in disassociation long before I could even spell the word. I left my body so often I wasn't sure I had one anymore. I hovered somewhere just above the surface of skin and bone, a ghost with a heartbeat, watching it happening like I was trapped behind a one-way mirror. I learned how to drift out of pain like it was a burning building. I filed the memories into boxes that didn't have names, just sensations, just shadows, just echoes, and the silent scream of a nervous system in overdrive. And then I wrapped it all in ribbons of perfectionism and offered it to the world like a carefully crafted gift. Straight A's, spotless room, a soul contorted into whatever shape fit the situation best. Not a little girl at all, rather a chameleon, cold-blooded and feral. They called my numbness and defense mechanisms attachment disorder. Another confirmation I was broken, wrong, distorted. People loved to tell me how strong I was, how well adjusted. They praised my independence, my discipline, my maturity, but what they were really celebrating was hypervigilance and pigtails. They mistook trauma for work ethic. They mistook my obsession with control for confidence. They applauded my performance, but they never looked behind the curtain. They never saw the child underneath and the woman drowning in silence. And then I did what so many survivors do. I blamed myself. Healing didn't arrive like a lightning bolt crackling through the dark. It came slowly in fragments, tiny, stinging truths I had to let in through gritted teeth. It began the day I stopped pretending I was okay. It began the moment I let my voice tremble in front of another human being and forgot to apologize a million times for it. It began the first time I called what happened to me by its real name, and I didn't flinch. I used to think I was too much and not enough all at once. That's what trauma teaches you, how to disappear in plain sight, but something shifted, not all at once. Slowly, painstakingly, undeniably, I began listening to the language of my nervous system. I stopped pathologizing my reactions and started seeing the genius in them, the nausea, the freezing, the panic attacks, the checking out mid-sentence. These were not malfunctions. These were survival strategies, protective brilliance, primal intelligence. I had spent years believing my body was betraying me when in truth it had been fighting for me the whole time. So I went looking for answers. I dove headfirst into the why. I studied everything I could get my hands on. Eastern philosophy, Western psychology, somatic healing, spiritual frameworks, trauma theory, neuroscience, polyvagal theory, and of course, attachment systems. I didn't just want answers. I needed them just to keep on breathing. Not only to understand my own pain, but to understand why the people who caused it didn't seem to feel any. What makes someone capable of evil while wearing the mask of love or leadership? What turns a rescuer into a predator? What lets someone stand in a pulpit, pin on a badge, tuck a child into bed, and then become a monster? That's when I found it, the dark triad: narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy. The dark triad is not a fantasy or a psychological buzzword. It is a chilling cluster of personality traits seen in those who manipulate, harm, and destroy, often with a smile. Narcissism is the insatiable need for admiration and control, coupled with a lack of empathy. Machiavellianism is strategic deception and cold manipulation for personal gain. Psychopathy is a lack of conscience, remorse, or emotional depth. Put them together and you get a dangerous cocktail of charisma and cruelty. Though most offenders are not fully any of these diagnoses. These characteristics live on a spectrum, and even with low levels of expression, great damage can come from these traits. These weren't just terms in a textbook. These were people I knew, Sunday school youth pastors, friends, parents, uncles, good men, rescuers, heroes in the eyes of the community. And the world couldn't see through their masks, but I could. Almost like a magic trick, the nervous system knows. I smell a predator from miles away. I've learned how to hunt the hunters. Ready to rise up. Before Rise Up was ever a movement, it was a calling. And before that, it was a coping mechanism. Obsessive learning became my armor. I devoured everything: textbooks, trauma theory, human behavior, forensic science, anything that might help me make sense of what I had lived through and how to stop it from happening to someone else. I developed an almost photographic memory for what I read. I can tell you what book, what page, and flip right to a piece of information in my library. This is my safe place. The more I learned, the safer I felt, but knowledge alone was not enough. I needed to be closer to the fire. I volunteered. I threw myself into emergency rooms and ambulances while I pursued my pre-med education. I thought I wanted to be a forensic pathologist. There was something about the certainty of it. The dead don't lie. They don't scream. They don't lose the case. You don't lose the case when the patient is already gone. And maybe most importantly, the dead can't hurt you. It's funny how so many people fear death. For me, it was simply a certainty, a quiet, safe place in a scary world. It was the known in a sea of dangerous unknown. Dark humor, maybe, but that's how I survived the tragedy of survival. Still, every shift brought new heartbreak. So many tragedies walk through the doors of trauma bays and life flights. You don't remember their names, but you never forget their faces or the screams or the smell of copper in the air. Every call etched something into me, but it wasn't until the day a wounded officer was wheeled in that everything changed. His team stood around him like a living shield, raw with grief, but grounded in something unshakable. There was a brotherhood, a loyalty, a presence I didn't have a name for yet, but I felt it, and I knew I needed to be near that light. Part of something bigger than myself. That day shifted everything. I changed my path from medicine to forensics, then to national security and criminal justice. I chased the questions nobody wanted to ask. I pursued the patterns behind the pain. I found myself drawn to the intersection of mind and motive, to the stories behind the bloodstains, to the silent spaces where justice and healing meet. Eventually, I found my home in forensic and trauma psychology. crime scene reconstruction, critical incident response, and trafficking investigations. And through it all, the deeper truth kept calling. Healing isn't a solo mission. Justice isn't just about evidence. And the strongest warriors aren't the ones who feel nothing. They're the ones who rise up anyway, hearts wide open, pain and all. And time rolled on and my obsession grew. And even in my chaos, one thing remained consistent: a hunger for belonging, to be a part of something bigger, something that mattered. And so many degrees and over 100 certifications later, I just kept working. There are moments that stop time, that steal our breath, and challenge everything we think we are. They always start out like any other day. Mine always seem to revolve around the deep something that connects the Blue family together. It's nothing as simple as love or respect or brotherhood. And the more time I spend doing the work, the more I'm convinced it's only a mirror. In it, I recognize the expression of pure and simplistic survival. A sliver of myself I see in their most vulnerable moments. A place where I make sense and where naturally I find belonging. We're on a human trafficking rescue, and the kids got out. One of them wasn't in great shape. The scene was something out of a horror film, the kind of thing you can't scrub from your eyes no matter how hard you try. And when it is over, everyone just moves on. There was laughter in the hallway, debrief chatter, talk of where to get burgers and beers, like this was just another day. Empty finality on something we all know marks just the beginning, and we know the statistics. We know the suffering that never ends, even now, because rescue isn't the same as safety, and healing is for so many a long journey through hell. We all know, and we all continue to pretend it's okay. We're okay. But one officer didn't laugh, didn't joke. He walked outside into the precinct parking lot and ended his life quietly, silently. No note, no announcement, no warning. He was just done pretending. And on a primal level, none of us would ever admit we understood. It could have been any of us. We've all thought about it. Some have even practiced the scenarios in our heads. And we kept on smiling, joking, planning the next burger and beer and pretending it's okay. We're okay. He never spoke a word about the weight he carried, about the darkness pressing in, about what it does to a man to see suffering stacked on suffering, knowing that for every child you rescue, 1,000 more wait in the shadows. He didn't speak of the broken chain of command, of betrayal, of the thankless grind and the endless catch and release game. He just disappeared. And in the hollow shock of that silence, I realized something profound. This wasn't just about healing the girl who survived. It was about building something for the ones who never say a word, the ones who hold the line until it breaks them, the ones who save everyone but themselves, the ones who wear armor so long they forget that they're bleeding out underneath, and in the ashes of so many lives, I woke up. This is where Rise Up was born, not from inspiration, but from devastation, from ash, from rage, from grief, from love, from the sacred fire of knowing that someone has to hold the light. And I knew it had to be me because I'd already walked through the fires of hell, and hell had no surprises left for me. I knew the darkness better than I knew myself. But before there was the storm, there was the starfish. I was a little girl in ringlet curls and ruffled petticoats the first time I heard the story, the one about a little girl walking along the beach, gently throwing starfish back into the ocean. A stranger sees her and says, "Why bother? You can't save them all. It doesn't matter." And the little girl in her soft-spoken innocence replies, "It matters to that one." That story embedded itself in my bones, invading my dreams. I saw myself in both roles. I was the child kneeling in the hot sand, whispering "I love you" to a helpless pink starfish before tossing it gently into the waves. And I was the starfish splayed out on the shore, burning in the sun, praying someone would stop, praying to be seen, to be chosen. I wanted to matter to someone, to be loved enough that they would fight for me. But now I am the ocean. I'm no longer a single drop. I'm the rising tide. I'm a force of nature that refuses to be ignored. I'm a tidal wave of change. I tear through systems of silence. I wash away the shame etched into skin. I speak the unspeakable. I am transformation in flesh and bone. I am the voice that won't go quiet again, the pattern breaker, the soul collector, the space maker. The one who looks others in the eye and says, I see you, I believe you, you are not alone. And if you stand on that beach with me, if you roll up your sleeves and fight for the starfish too, just imagine how many we can save. Because every drop matters. There's a phase on the healing journey that some call the unhealed healer. It's the chapter where we throw ourselves into saving others because it hurts too much to sit still long enough to feel what we carry. And make no mistake, we are carrying it, whether we acknowledge it or not. And that was me. I ran headfirst into service like it was a burning building. Every fire I put out for someone else made me feel like maybe I wasn't still burning inside. But trauma is patient. It waits. It doesn't mind if you become a paramedic, a therapist, a soldier, or a savior. It doesn't care if you become an expert at helping others navigate their pain. Eventually, the fire turns inward. Eventually, the cost comes due. I was the strong one in every room, the one with the clipboard, the plan, the battle-ready presence. People came to me for answers, for comfort, for rescue, but I hadn't rescued myself. The work I did was real. It mattered. Lives were saved, but I wasn't whole, and I didn't think that mattered. I thought if I can just help one more person, maybe it will make the pain worth it. I thought if I can stay busy enough, maybe the ghosts will stay quiet. But they didn't. They howled in the moments between shifts. They whispered in the cracks of my voice when I said I was fine. They sat in the passenger seat on the way home from every call, every rescue, every late night mission. Eventually, I had to stop running. I had to stop pretending that my own healing was optional. I had to recognize that I wasn't just a response system built to manage crisis, though that's a big part of my identity. I'm also human, and my wounds need healing too. All I wanted was to be enough, whatever that means. And now I see I'm not only enough, but I've always been enough. And I'm something more than enough, more than worthy, more than lovable. I am loved. I am sacred. I am light that shines in even the darkest of places. I am the storm. I am priceless. I am powerful. And so are you. You might not have my story, but maybe you've known what it feels like to be the one that everyone leans on while you silently fall apart. Maybe you felt the pressure to be perfect, to be strong, to be always put together. Maybe you've watched people praise your resilience without even asking what it costs you. This chapter, this moment, is for you. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are not a burden. You are not just a drop. You are the ocean. You are the tide that rises after every collapse. You are the force that refuses to bow to silence, to shame, to the systems that told you your pain was a weakness. You are what happens when someone survives and finds their voice. You are what happens when healing becomes a revolution. Every drop matters, every story, every scar, every act of courage to speak the truth. You matter. If you are carrying pain that no one sees, I want you to know I see you, I believe you, and I'm standing in the waves beside you. And if you're someone who has space to give, to listen, to support, to stand beside those still in the fire, now is the time. This is a call to the warriors who no longer want to fight alone, to the caregivers who need care themselves, to the strong ones who deserve rest. This is a call to the lighthouse keepers, the soul tenders, the storm breakers, the ones who are ready to rise up and say, no more silent suffering, not on my watch. Rise Up isn't just a program, it's a movement, a declaration, a tidal wave. Join us, because healing isn't a solo mission, because silence ends here, because every drop really does matter, and together we are the ocean. What would happen if you answered the call? How could you heal your own suffering by recognizing how connected we all are? What if you realized how truly powerful you are? Are you ready to rise up? About the author. Krista Fee is a visionary thought leader dedicated to transformation, healing, education, and crisis intervention. As the founder of RISEUP Phoenix Trauma and Crisis Institute and executive director of Battlesby Incorporated, a 501c3 nonprofit, Krista's created a powerful platform for trauma and crisis education, offering individuals and communities the tools and support they need to heal and thrive. With a deep understanding of neuroscience, psychology, personal growth, and crisis intervention, Krista bridges the gap between education and empowerment through expert guidance, compassionate leadership, and a commitment to real impact. She helps individuals find healing, reclaim their strength, and step into their full potential. Whether through trauma education and training, individual, group, or organizational coaching, or advocacy, Krista is on a mission of impact to ignite transformation and change lives, families, and communities.
Become a RiseUp Hero sponsor to provide mental wellness and crisis response resources for those who serve country and community. Join us in the RiseUp movement today.